We don't serve people like him. Get him out." The words didn't just land. They echoed, sharp against crystal glasses and low jazz, slicing through a room that smelled like money and silence. Ava Johnson stood still for half a second, a tray balanced on her fingertips, her reflection flickering in the polished marble floor beneath her worn black sneakers. Around her, tailored suits leaned back in their chairs, eyes narrowing, lips curling, as if dignity itself had just walked in wearing the wrong clothes. The man by the door didn't speak. Rain clung to his coat, dripping steadily onto the hardwood, forming a quiet pool no one wanted to acknowledge. He looked tired, not dangerous, not loud, just invisible. Ava had seen that look before. She saw it every morning in the mirror before her double shifts, every night when her feet ached and her bank account barely moved. Invisible didn't mean worthless. It meant overlooked. The manager's voice came again, tighter this time, laced with warning. "Ava, don't make this a problem." A problem. That's what kindness became when it interrupted comfort. Ava inhaled slowly, the kind of breath you take when you know something small is about to cost you something big. The clinking of silverware slowed. Conversations dimmed. Even the pianist hesitated for a beat, as if the room itself was watching what she would do next. Ava stepped forward. One step, then another. Her shoes were quiet, but the moment wasn't. She reached the man, close enough now to see the tremble in his hands, the way his eyes avoided everyone else but not her. Without asking permission, without checking the room again, she set the tray down on the nearest table, lifted a warm plate, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, something no one here would miss, and placed it gently into his hands. "You don't have to leave hungry," she said, her voice soft but steady, the kind of steady that comes from being tired of choosing fear. A ripple moved through the room. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough. Phones tilted, eyebrows lifted. The manager stepped closer, his smile thin, rehearsed. "You're crossing a line." Ava didn't look at him. Not yet. Because in that moment, the only line that mattered was the one between seeing someone and pretending you didn't. The man looked down at the plate, then back at her, something shifting behind his eyes, something quiet but powerful, like a door opening in a place no one else could see. He nodded once. Not a thank you. Something deeper. Something remembered. Ava finally turned to face her manager, her shoulders relaxed, her hands empty now, like she had already let go of whatever this might cost. Then maybe the line needed crossing. The room didn't applaud. It didn't need to. Because something had already changed, and no one in that restaurant, not the suits, not the whispers, not even Ava herself, understood just how expensive that one small act of kindness was about to become. The manager did not yell again. That was what made it worse. His silence settled over the room like a closing door, polite on the surface, heavy underneath. Ava felt it in the way the other servers suddenly moved faster, eyes down, as if distance could protect them from association. The man by the door sat quietly now at a small side table, shoulders slightly hunched, eating slowly, carefully, like every bite mattered. No one approached him. No one spoke to him. But everyone watched. Ava returned to her section, lifting plates, refilling glasses, moving through the choreography she had memorized over years of working rooms that never really saw her. "Table 12 needs another bottle," a coworker whispered, not unkind, just cautious. Ava nodded, her hands steady, her mind louder than the room. She knew how this usually ended. A write-up, a warning, maybe a schedule cut, maybe worse. Kindness did not fit neatly into policies. It disrupted order. And order, in places like this, was everything. The manager finally stepped beside her near the service station, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Clock out after this round." Not angry, not loud, just final. Ava nodded once. No argument, no explanation. Because explaining kindness always sounded like defiance to people who had never needed it. The rest of her shift passed in fragments. The weight of porcelain plates. The quiet hum of conversations returning as if nothing had happened. The soft clink of a credit card hitting a bill folder. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary night. Except it was not. Not for her. Not anymore. When she reached the small table near the door, the plate was empty. Clean. The man stood, adjusting his coat, the rain outside now softer, almost gone. For a second, it felt like the moment might disappear without a trace, like it had never mattered at all. But then he looked at her. Really looked. Not past her. Not through her. At her. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice steady, controlled, the kind of voice that carried weight even when it whispered. Ava gave a small nod, the kind you give when you do not expect anything more. Because she did not. She had learned not to. The man reached into his coat, not for money, not for a wallet, but for something smaller. A card. Matte black. No shine. No decoration. He placed it gently on the edge of the table between them. "In case you ever need it," he added, almost as if the words were optional. Ava glanced down. No logo she recognized. Just a name. William Carter. The letters were simple, but something about them felt intentional. Before she could ask anything, before the moment could stretch into questions, he was already moving toward the door, blending back into the city that had ignored him hours earlier. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Just like that, he was gone. Ava picked up the card, turning it slightly in her fingers, the weight of it surprising for something so small. Behind her, the manager's voice cut in again. "Ava, office. Now." She slipped the card into her apron pocket without thinking, her heartbeat steady, her face calm. Because whatever was about to happen next, she had already made her choice. And some choices, once made, do not ask for permission to change your life. The office door closed with a soft click, but the sound carried more weight than a slam. Ava stood still for a moment, the faint hum of the restaurant now muffled behind polished wood and thick carpet. The lighting inside was colder, sharper, stripping away the warmth that the dining room pretended to offer. Her manager stood behind the desk, not sitting, not pacing, just watching her like she had already made his night more complicated than it needed to be. "You know why you are here," he said, folding his arms slowly, like this was routine. Ava did not answer right away. She had learned that silence, when used correctly, could be stronger than defense. So she simply nodded once, calm, steady, present. The manager exhaled through his nose, glancing briefly at a clipboard on the desk, as if searching for a version of events that would make this easier. "We have standards here," he continued. "Guests expect a certain atmosphere. Control. Order." He paused, looking up at her again. "What you did disrupted that." Disrupted. The word hung there, heavier than it should have been. Ava shifted her weight slightly, her shoes quiet against the carpet. "He was hungry," she said simply. No apology. No explanation layered in excuses. Just the truth, clean and direct. The manager's expression tightened, not because she was wrong, but because she was not playing the role he expected. "That is not your decision to make," he replied, voice still measured, but thinner now. "There are procedures. There are boundaries." Ava's fingers brushed lightly against the edge of her apron, where the card rested in her pocket, still unfamiliar, still unexplained. She did not take it out. Not yet. Because something told her this moment was not about proof. It was about principle. "If someone needs help," she said, her voice just as steady as before, "I am going to help them." No raised tone. No defiance in her posture. Just certainty. The kind that does not ask permission. The room went quiet again, but this time it felt different. Not tense. Not sharp. Just still, like something had settled into place. The manager looked at her for a long second, his jaw tightening slightly, as if he was weighing something beyond policy. Then he reached for the clipboard, flipping a page with more force than necessary. "You are suspended for the rest of the week," he said. "We will review your position after that." The words landed, but they did not break anything. Ava nodded again, slower this time, absorbing it, not resisting it. Because she had expected a cost. Kindness always came with one. She turned to leave, her hand already on the door handle when his voice stopped her again. Was it worth it? The question was quieter now, almost personal, as if even he was not sure why he asked it. Ava paused, her back still to him, her reflection faint in the glass panel of the door. For a moment, the restaurant lights flickered through it, gold against shadow. She thought about the man's eyes, the way he had looked at her. Not past her, not through her, at her. "Yes," she said, without turning around. Then she stepped out into the hallway, the noise of the restaurant rushing back and like nothing had changed. But something had. She could feel it. Not in her job, not in her schedule, in something deeper, something quieter, something that had already begun to move, even if she could not see where it was leading yet. Outside, The rain had stopped completely. The pavement reflected the city lights like a mirror, stretching out in every direction. Ava reached into her apron and pulled out the card, holding it under the streetlight. William Carter. The name sat there, simple, silent, waiting. And for the first time that night, Ava felt a question rise that she could not immediately answer. Who exactly had she just helped? The street was quieter than it should have been for a city that never really slept. Tires whispered across wet pavement, neon signs flickered in reflection, and somewhere in the distance, a siren rose and faded like it had nothing to do with her. Ava Johnson walked slowly, her steps unhurried, not because she had nowhere to be, but because she needed a moment to feel what had just shifted. The night air was cool against her skin, carrying that clean scent that only comes after rain, like the world had reset itself without asking permission. In her hand, the card felt heavier now, not in weight, but in meaning. William Carter. She turned it slightly under the streetlight again, as if the name might change if she looked at it long enough. It did not. A black sedan rolled past her, smooth and silent, too polished for this part of the street, its tinted windows hiding whoever sat inside. Ava barely noticed. Cars. Like that did not belong to her world. Not really. She slipped the card back into her pocket and kept walking, past closed storefronts, past a laundromat still humming under fluorescent lights, past a couple arguing softly on a corner, like life had not paused for anything that happened inside that restaurant. Her phone buzzed once in her apron. She pulled it out, the screen lighting up her face in the dim glow. A message from her bank. Low balance alert. Ava let out a small breath, not surprised, just reminded. Rent was due in 5 days. Her suspension meant fewer hours. Fewer hours meant harder choices. The math was simple. It always was. She tucked her phone away, her grip tightening slightly around the strap of her bag. This was the part people did not see. Not the moment of kindness. Not the quiet decision. But the cost that followed after everyone else moved on. Ava reached her apartment building, a narrow structure wedged between two taller ones, its paint worn, its entrance light flickering like it could not decide whether to stay on or give up. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step familiar, each creak a reminder that nothing here changed quickly. Inside, her apartment was small, barely enough space for a bed, a table, and a kitchen that shared more than it separated. She set her keys down, slipped off her shoes, and stood there for a moment in the silence. No music, no television, just her breathing and the distant hum of the city beyond the thin walls. Ava reached into her apron again, pulling out the card and placing it carefully on the table under the soft yellow lamp. It looked out of place there. Too clean, too deliberate, like it belonged to a different story entirely. She sat down across from it, her elbows resting lightly on the table, her eyes fixed on those two words. William Carter. The name lingered in her mind, not because she recognized it, but because something about it felt unfinished, like a sentence waiting for the rest of itself. Ava leaned back slightly, exhaling slowly, letting the weight of the day settle into her bones. She thought about the manager's question. Was it worth it? The answer had come easily then. It still felt the same now. Yes, but Worth did not pay rent. Worth did not change schedules or restore hours. Worth was something quieter, something internal. Ava reached out and tapped the card lightly with her finger, once, as if testing whether it was real. It did not move. It did not explain itself. It just stayed there, patient, waiting. Outside, a car door closed somewhere below. Footsteps followed. Then silence again. Ava stared at the card a little longer, her mind circling a thought she had not fully formed yet. People like him did not just appear. They did not just disappear either. And something told her this was not the end of that moment in the restaurant. It was the beginning of something she had not yet seen coming. The card stayed where she left it, quiet under the soft yellow light, like it had all the time in the world. Ava did not sleep much that night. Not because she was worried, but because something in her mind would not settle. It was not fear. It was not hope either. It was something in between, something unfamiliar. By morning, the city had returned to its usual rhythm. Car horns, coffee cups, people rushing like time was always just a little ahead of them. Ava moved through it the same way she always did, steady, focused, blending into the current. Except today, she was not heading to work. Suspension had a strange weight to it. It gave you time, but not the kind you asked for. She sat at the small table again, staring at the card as sunlight crept through the blinds, cutting thin lines across its surface. William Carter. The name still did not mean anything concrete, but it refused to feel ordinary. Ava reached for her phone, hesitating for a moment before typing the name into the search bar. The screen loaded slowly, then all at once. Articles, headlines, images. A man in tailored suits, standing beside glass buildings that touched the sky. A name attached to numbers she had never imagined. Companies she had never heard of, but somehow shaped the world around her anyway. William Carter. CEO. Billionaire. Ava blinked once, then again, as if the screen might correct itself. It did not. The man from last night. The one no one wanted to see. The one she had handed a plate of food without a second thought. Her fingers hovered over the screen, scrolling through photos that felt disconnected from the memory she held. The man in those images looked polished, controlled, powerful in a way that did not ask for attention but commanded it anyway. But she remembered something else. The quiet. The way he had held the plate. The way he had looked at her like she mattered. Ava leaned back in her chair slowly, her breath steady but deeper now, as the realization settled in layers. She had not just helped a stranger. She had stepped into a moment that reached far beyond her world without even knowing it. A knock at the door broke the silence. Sharp. Unexpected. Ava's head lifted, her body still for a second as she listened. No one visited her. Not unannounced. The knock came again, firm but not aggressive. Just certain. Ava stood, walking toward the door with measured steps, her heartbeat calm but aware. She reached the handle, pausing just long enough to center herself before pulling it open. On the other side stood a man in a dark suit, crisp, composed, holding a tablet in one hand. Not out of place, not uncertain. Behind him, at the curb, a black SUV idled quietly, its engine barely audible, but its presence impossible to ignore. The man met her eyes directly, professional but not cold. Ava Johnson, he said, not asking, but confirming. Ava did not answer right away. She did not need to. Mr. Carter would like to see you, he continued, his tone even, practiced, as if this was just another line in a long day of important conversations. Ava's gaze shifted briefly past him, toward the SUV, then back again. The world she understood stood behind her. Small. Predictable. The world in front of her was something else entirely. And for the first time since last night, the question in her mind had an answer forming. Not fully clear. Not fully safe. But real. Because kindness had a way of opening doors you never planned to walk through. And now, one was standing right in front of her. Ava did not move right away. The hallway felt narrower somehow, like the walls had leaned in just enough to notice the moment unfolding. The man in the suit waited without impatience, his posture relaxed but precise, like time worked differently for him. Behind him, the black SUV sat still, its presence quiet but undeniable, the kind of quiet that came from certainty, not absence. Ava's hand rested lightly on the door, her mind moving faster than her expression. This was not something that happened in her world. Not like this. Not without warning. She glanced back into her apartment for a split second, at the small table, the thin sunlight, the life she understood because she had built it piece by piece. Then she looked forward again. Now, she asked, her voice calm, grounded, even though the question carried more than just timing. The man gave a small nod. He is expecting you. Expecting. The words settled differently than invited. Ava stepped back inside just long enough to grab her bag, her fingers brushing against the edge of the table where the card had been hours before. It was no longer just a name. It was a door she had already opened. She closed the apartment behind her with a soft click, locking it out of habit, even though something told her she would not be the same person when she returned. The air outside felt sharper now, more awake. Ava followed the man down the stairs, each step echoing slightly, marking the shift she could not undo. When they reached the street, the man opened the rear door of the SUV without a word, stepping aside to let her enter first. Ava hesitated for half a second, not out of fear, but out of awareness. Then she stepped in. The interior was quiet, insulated from the city in a way she had never experienced. The door closed gently behind her, sealing off the outside world with a soft thud that felt final. The seat beneath her was smooth, the space around her controlled, deliberate, like every detail had been chosen for a reason. The man took the front passenger seat, speaking briefly to the driver in a low voice before the vehicle began to move. Ava watched through the tinted window as her neighborhood slipped away, replaced by wider streets, taller buildings, cleaner lines. The city shifted around her without asking permission, just like the night before. No one spoke during the drive. The silence was not awkward. It was structured, like it belonged there. Ava rested her hands in her lap, her fingers loosely interlaced, her posture steady. She did not ask questions. Not yet. Because whatever answers were waiting, they were not the kind you rushed. The SUV slowed as they approached a building that rose above the others, glass catching the morning light like it owned it. The entrance was clean, polished, guarded not by force, but by presence. The kind that made people stand straighter without being told. The vehicle came to a stop, and the driver stepped out immediately, opening Ava's door with practiced ease. Ava stepped onto the pavement, her shoes making a soft sound against the smooth stone. She looked up once, taking in the height of the building, the reflection of the sky stretching across its surface. It did not feel real. Not yet. The man in the suit gestured toward the entrance. This way. Ava followed, her steps measured, her expression calm, even as something inside her began to shift again, deeper this time. Inside, the lobby was quiet in a different way than her apartment. Not empty. Controlled. Every movement had purpose. Every detail had intention. And somewhere beyond those polished floors and glass walls, the man she had helped without knowing his name was waiting. Not as a stranger this time, but as something else entirely. Something that was about to change everything. The elevator doors closed with a quiet precision that felt almost deliberate, sealing Ava inside a space that moved without sound, without effort, without asking for anything in return. The man in the suit stood beside her, hands folded, eyes forward, as if this ride had been taken 1,000 times before. Ava watched the numbers above the door rise steadily, each floor passing like a silent marker of how far she was being pulled from everything familiar. There were no buttons for her to press, no choices to make. The direction had already been decided. The air inside the elevator was cool, controlled, carrying a faint scent that felt expensive without trying to prove it. Ava shifted her weight slightly, her reflection faint in the mirrored walls, her posture steady even as her surroundings continued to remind her she did not belong here. Not yet. The elevator slowed, then stopped. The doors opened to a floor that did not look like an office. It looked like a statement. Wide open space. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretching across the city, sunlight pouring in like it had been invited. The floors were polished but not loud, the furniture minimal but intentional, every detail speaking without needing to raise its voice. Ava stepped out slowly, her eyes taking in the scale of it, the quiet confidence of a place that did not need to impress because it already did. The man gestured forward once more. He is inside. His voice remained even, professional, but there was something different now. A hint of respect, not just for the space, but for what was about to happen. Ava walked forward, her steps soft against the floor, her heartbeat steady, her mind clear in a way she had not expected. At the far end of the room, near the glass that overlooked the city, a figure stood with his back turned, hands resting lightly behind him. Still, composed. The same man, but not the same presence. He did not turn immediately. He let the silence settle first, like it mattered, like the moment needed space to arrive fully. Ava stopped a few feet away, her gaze fixed on him, recognizing him instantly even though everything about him now was different. The coat was gone, replaced by a tailored suit that fit like it had been made for him and no one else. The quiet from last night was still there, but now it carried something else. Control. The kind that shaped rooms without effort. Finally, he turned. William Carter. The name now matched the man standing in front of her. His eyes met hers, steady, direct, the same look from the night before, but clearer now, sharper, fully awake. You came, he said, his voice calm, low, carrying the same weight it had in the restaurant. But now there was no doubt about where that weight came from. Ava held his gaze, her expression unchanged. You asked. The corners of his mouth shifted slightly, not quite a smile, but something close. A recognition. He stepped closer, closing the distance between them without urgency, without pressure. Do you know who I am? He asked, not with arrogance, but with curiosity, as if the answer mattered more than the title. Ava did not rush. She had already seen the headlines, the buildings, the numbers, but none of that was what she answered with. "You are the man who needed help," she said simply. The silence that followed was different this time. Not empty, not tense. It was full, and for the first time since she stepped into that building, something shifted in William Carter's expression. Not power, not control, something quieter, something real. Because in a world where everyone knew his name, she had chosen to remember something else entirely. And that changed the room more than anything else could. William Carter did not look away. Not immediately. Ava's answer stayed in the air between them, quiet but unshakable, cutting through titles, numbers, and everything that usually defined him. For a man used to being recognized before he even spoke, it landed differently. He let out a slow breath, almost unnoticeable, as if something inside him had shifted without permission. "Most people would have said something else," he replied, his voice softer now, less guarded. Ava did not respond. She did not need to, because she had not come here to impress him. She had come because he asked, and that changed everything. William turned slightly, gesturing toward the seating area near the window, a low table set with precision, 2 glasses of water already waiting as if the conversation had been planned long before she arrived. Ava followed, her steps steady, her eyes taking in the view only briefly before settling back on him. The city stretched out below them, but it did not feel distant. It felt small, controlled, like something he could move if he decided to. He waited until she sat before taking his own seat across from her, not behind a desk, not above her, but level. That, too, was intentional. "Last night," he began, resting his hands lightly together, "I was not supposed to be there." Ava's brow shifted slightly, not in confusion, but in attention. "I was testing something," he continued. "A new acquisition. A place that claims to value service, experience, respect." His gaze met hers again, sharper now, but not cold. "I needed to see how people behave when they think no one important is watching." Ava leaned back slightly, absorbing his words without reacting too quickly, because now the pieces were moving into place. The restaurant, the manager, the room full of people who decided who mattered and who did not. "And what did you see?" she asked calmly. William's jaw tightened for a brief moment, not with anger, but with recognition. "Exactly what I expected," he said. Then a pause. "Until you." The silence that followed was not empty. It was weighted. Ava did not look away. "You broke the pattern," he added, his voice steady, but something underneath it had changed. Not authority, something closer to respect. Ava glanced down at the glass of water for a second, then back up. "I did what anyone should do," she said simply. William shook his head once, a small motion, but firm. "No," he replied. "You did what almost no one does." He reached into the inside pocket of his suit and pulled out something familiar. The same black card. He placed it gently on the table between them, sliding it slightly toward her. "I do not give these out casually," he said. "And I do not forget moments like that." Ava looked at the card, then back at him, her expression unchanged, grounded, not overwhelmed, not eager, just present. William leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked onto hers, the city behind him now just background noise. "You lost hours because of what you did," he said. "You may lose more." Another pause. Then, clear, deliberate, and without hesitation, he added, "I would like to change that." The words did not rush. They landed. Carefully. Intentionally. Ava's fingers rested lightly on the edge of the table, not reaching for the card, not pulling away either. Because she understood something now. This was not just about reward. This was about consequence. And sometimes, consequence did not punish. Sometimes, it opened a door that forced you to decide who you were going to be next. The room stayed quiet after his words, but it was not the kind of silence that waited for permission. It was the kind that carried weight, the kind that asked for a decision without saying it out loud. Ava looked at the card resting between them, then back at William Carter, her expression steady, grounded in something that did not shift easily. "Change it how?" she asked, her voice calm, not rushed, not impressed, just clear. William did not hesitate. "A position," he said. "With me. Not in a restaurant. Not serving people who do not see you. Something that reflects what you actually are." Ava held his gaze, her fingers still resting lightly on the table, unmoved. "And what is that?" she asked. William leaned back slightly, studying her for a moment, not like a businessman evaluating an asset, but like someone trying to understand a truth he had almost missed. Someone who makes decisions based on character, he said. Someone who sees what others ignore. That is not a small thing. Ava let his words settle, but she did not reach for them, because she had learned something long before this moment. Opportunity could look like reward, but it could also test who you were when things changed. You do not know me, she said quietly. William nodded once, accepting that without resistance. I know enough, he replied. And I know what you did cost you something. I do not ignore that. Ava glanced briefly toward the window, the city stretching out below like it belonged to someone else's life. Then she looked back at him. So this is payment? She asked. William's expression shifted, just slightly, enough to show that the question mattered. No, he said firmly. This is recognition. The word landed differently. Not heavy, not light, just honest. Ava leaned back in her chair, her breath slow, her thoughts moving carefully. Because this was the moment. Not the restaurant. Not the night before. This, where choices did not just affect survival. They shaped direction. If I say no, she asked, what happens? William did not look surprised. If anything, he seemed more certain. Then nothing changes, he said. You walk out that door, and your life continues exactly as it was. No punishment. No pressure. Just your choice. Ava nodded slowly, absorbing it, weighing it, not against money or titles, but against something quieter, something internal. She reached forward then, not for the card, but for the glass of water, taking a small sip, giving herself a second longer to think. Then she set it back down carefully. I helped you because you needed help, she said. Not because I expected anything back. William's gaze did not waver. I know. Ava held his eyes for one more second. Then finally, her fingers moved toward the card, lifting it from the table, feeling its weight again, but now understanding what it carried. She stood up slowly, the chair barely making a sound against the floor. Then if I do this, she said, her voice steady, certain, it will not be because you own